Welcome in. Today, we're breaking down a document that makes a pretty startling claim. It outlines a financial doomsday scenario, a multi-trillion-dollar plot that was allegedly stopped just moments before it could go off. So, we're going to walk through exactly how this supposed scheme was built, who the author says stopped it, and the pretty urgent warning it leaves for, well, all of us.
Okay, let's just dive right into this. The source material we're looking at today, well, it gets straight to the point. It opens with this one central question. And right away, it frames this whole thing as a story about preventing a crime of absolutely historic proportions.
And there it is. That's the core of the whole thing, right in that one sentence. This comes from a document called The Engineered Bitcoin Retirement Collapse of 2025. And honestly, that one line is the foundation for everything else it talks about. Now, just to be clear, our goal here isn't to prove or disprove any of this. We're just here to explain what the source is claiming and how it lays out its argument. So, what exactly is this crime the author is talking about? Well, they claim it wasn't some random market crash that might have happened. No, they're saying this was a deliberately, carefully engineered event. And the plot, as they describe it, all started when a high-level official was put in place with a very specific and very secret mission.
Yeah, and according to this document, that mission had nothing to do with financial innovation. It was, they say, a classic pump and dump scheme. You know the drill. Insiders hype up an asset to artificially inflate the price, that's the pump, and then they sell off everything they own at the very top, the dump, which of course leaves everybody else holding the bag. And the really crazy part, the alleged plan was to use American retirement accounts as the fuel to pump up Bitcoin, only to collapse it for a massive payday for the insiders.
Okay, so how could a system even be rigged like that? Well, the author breaks down the whole architecture of the plot, piece by piece, and they argue that before you could even start building this kind of financial trap, you had to get rid of one crucial safety measure first. You had to dismantle it. And that brings us to a really specific SEC rule, Rule 19b-4. Now, what the document claims is that this rule was basically the system's firewall. In simple terms, it forced exchanges to get the SEC to sign off on any new products. So as long as that rule was in place, every single new crypto ETF, those investment funds that track an asset like Bitcoin, had to be reviewed one by one out in the open. According to the author, that made a huge secret scheme pretty much impossible. And you can really see the author's argument laid out here. With that firewall Rule 19b-4 in place, the system is transparent. It's a one-by-one review, a safety lock. But take that rule away. The author claims it becomes a totally different beast. No oversight. It's not a firewall anymore. It's a wide-open tunnel, a backdoor that could let all sorts of risky stuff flood into retirement accounts without anyone really checking. So for the author, the proof is all in the timeline. The document lays out a very specific sequence of events, and the argument is that as soon as that firewall was gone, the people behind this alleged plot moved incredibly fast. They didn't waste a single day putting the rest of the trap together. And look, according to this document, this sequence of events was no accident. The author presents it as a super rapid, coordinated effort. Step 1, quietly delete the rule. Get rid of the firewall. Then, just a few weeks later, you see NASDAQ filing to multiply Bitcoin options, what the author calls the weapon. And then, just days after that, JP Morgan files for leveraged Bitcoin notes, the trigger. In the author's view, these moves, happening so close together, weren't coincidence. It was the final architecture of the financial trap being snapped into place. So what was the endgame here? How was this supposed to go down? Well, the author lays out the alleged detonation sequence in 5 pretty chilling steps. First, Bitcoin goes to the moon, right? An insane, artificially pumped price surge. That triggers automatic buying from retirement accounts. They're programmed to jump in on the frenzy. Then, right at the very peak, the insiders cash out. They dump everything, the system collapses, Bitcoin crashes. In those leverage tools they created, they make the fall even faster and harder. And the result? Retirees lose it all. The source says it's basically the 2008 playbook, but on steroids. So if this whole plan was so detailed and ready to go, how on earth was it stopped? Well, this is where the story takes a turn, and the document introduces its hero, the one person who supposedly saw what was happening and exposed the whole thing. And what's interesting is the document doesn't say it was the SEC or some big news organization that figured this out. Nope. It credits a single person, a figure they identify only as the super user Mr. AGI. They describe him as a political analyst and strategist who looked at all these puzzle pieces and didn't see random market moves. He saw a deliberate, engineered plot.
So what was the proof? Well, the document talks about an evidence package that was supposedly sent to politicians. It basically pulls together all these public records. You've got the regulatory bypass from the SEC, the derivatives expansion from NASDAQ and BlackRock, the approval of riskier assets, even reports of massive investor withdrawals from a big ETF. The author's point is that these aren't just separate news items. They're all connected dots, and when you connect them, they paint a picture of an engineered collapse.
But here's the thing. The document doesn't just end there with a, "Phew, that was close." It actually finishes with what it calls a global warning. The message is that the plot may have been stopped for now, but the danger is absolutely not over. And this is the critical takeaway, according to the author. They say the trigger for this whole trap is something you can actually watch for in the market. They're basically screaming from the rooftops. If you see Bitcoin start to rise uncontrollably, just going straight up, that's not a bull run. That's not your chance to get rich. You are watching the trap being sprung. And this is their final call to action, their direct warning to the public. They say to watch for one key signal: Bitcoin entering what they call fantasy mode. And if that happens, the advice is simple and urgent. Get your money out immediately. Don't fall for the hype. Don't believe the pump. What you're seeing, they claim, is a detonation sequence in action. And to back up the idea that this system was already incredibly shaky, the author points to numbers just like this one: over $523 million pulled from a single flagship Bitcoin ETF. That's a record amount, and it's cited as proof that the smart money, the big investors, they were already running for the exits, sensing that something was very, very wrong. So, in the end, this document leaves you with a really stark choice, doesn't it? On one hand, it presents its case using public data, arguing that its conclusions are undeniable fact. But on the other hand, the claim itself, a secret engineered plot to wipe out retirement savings worldwide, is just extraordinary. So what is it? A prophetic warning that we all need to heed, or a grand conspiracy theory? We've laid out the claims from the source material. Now, the final call is up to you.